In the history of tabletop games, there have been 6 foundational forms that have existed for centuries: dice games, paper and pencil games, board games, card games, tile-based games, and miniature games. The origins of these classics remain shrouded in mystery, lost to the sands of time. However, in 1973, a significant evolution occurred in the small communities of the Midwest, in particular Wisconsin and Minnesota.
And this was in the early 70s.
Lake Geneva, Wisconsin in the 1970s was a once fashionable tourist town that had been down on its luck for 50 years.
I discovered that there were other people in the Twin Cities who had an interest in historical games.
This is a significant rivalry issue.
It began with the publication of Dungeons & Dragons, or D&D as it became known. The origins of D&D are a matter of spirited debate.
Gary laid down his Ironfoot will,
That drives the wedge in right there.
which essentially meant that Arneson was out.
The reality, as we will soon see, is that it was a collective endeavor shaped by the collaborative efforts of individuals brought together by their shared passions.
The Twin Cities Gaming Group, pretty vibrant, very, very diverse group.
So whenever Saturdays rolled around and there was a meeting at Gary's, everybody used the basement doors so that we wouldn't have to track through the house.
We were largely gaming down the basement. Once or twice we had really big get-togethers where we sprawled our way up into the living room as well.
Sometimes we pushed it, a game during the week. Gary and I'd play a board game or a chess game or something like that. And then on the weekend we were playing, we'd have all the people over, play miniatures game or do something.
In the midst of the harsh Midwestern winters, young enthusiasts would gather to play games, continually refining and customizing rule sets.
And Dave Arneson, who also lived in St. Paul, probably 5 miles or 6 from where I lived.
He said, well, they don't carry the Milton Bradley games, but they had these interesting ones up on the shelf called Avalon Hill games. And that they were played locally by him and other people like Gary Gygax.
Arneson was a very friendly guy. I really enjoyed him.
Gary was quite a talker. He could really spin a yarn.
Out of this niche hobby, visionaries like Gary Gygax, Dave Arneson, and Dave Wesley emerged.
He was a game designer himself.
One of the things that happens, Arneson goes from a, I'm the ref, you tell me and I decide plan into a, you get to roll the dice to decide it.
His enthusiasm was sort of infectious.
It was like totally unheard of in the hobby at the time.
And the guys ate it up. So we were into that sort of, not role-playing, but storytelling.
They harnessed their love for gaming, fused it with their historical knowledge, and kindled their storytelling enthusiasm, birthing the 7th form of tabletop gaming, role-playing.
I don't remember what happened in the first game, but I remember after the end of the first time I ever played, sort of staggering out of Gary's house going, I have no idea what that just was, but that was fantastic.
When Arneson moved into a fantasy world, he got an even bigger advantage.
Fantasy is, because there's fewer physical limits, is much more wide open, and I think that's why fantasy became by far the most popular form of role-playing.
There was this gut feeling amongst us all that this thing was huge.
So Gary was the man who launched it, really got it off the ground.
I can't remember who came up with the name for Dungeons and Dragons.
And they're opening the boxes. And here's the first edition of Dungeons and Dragons, the very first printing.
If Arneson was essential for that, he certainly was, but it would never have gotten past the weird thing that a small number of people in Minnesota do without Gary to take the big chance and publish it. It was enormous.
This is the tale of how Dungeons & Dragons came to life.